Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to take place in the ninth chapter in the book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to review the eighth. The first verse opens with two questions and a statement and reads, "Who is like a wise one, and who knows the meaning of the matter? A man's wisdom makes his face shine, and the hardness of his face is changed." The answer to the first question is no one who is not wise, and the answer to the second question is obviously the wise. With wisdom comes the intendant ability to analyze and interpret. We know the meaning of things in ways that have coherent and sense. We can make sense of things with coherence because we have the ability to interpret the data and to discern the picture and interpret the meaning of things, to know why things are the way they are as opposed to that they merely are. And wisdom has the positive beneficial effect of physically reverting the frown upside down, the hardness of his face that is caused by anxiety and fear and frustration. But wisdom makes the face shine. It puts a great big smile on our face. So earlier he speaks of the grievous cross to be borne by wisdom. With knowledge increases grief, 118. But here he speaks of that there is an obvious advantage that wisdom does make a more enriching and fulfilling life. Then he speaks of the need to obey the king's commandments. Solomon was not a sadistic or selfish tyrant. This principle was necessary for the operation of an ordered society, so there is wisdom in obeying the king. He says this in verse 5, "He who keeps the commandments knows no evil matter, and the heart of the wise discerns both time and justice." To keep the commandments is to honor them and obey them, and if we keep the commandments, they will keep us from evil. Now, it is not enough to merely intellectually assent to the obedience in the abstract. You have to wisdom is not abstract or esoteric. It is highly personal and highly practical. And the wisdom of obedience becomes self-evident only in the practice thereof. But the commandments are designed to keep us away from evil, keep us away from harm, keep us away from eternal injury. And discernment is the ability to judge, make the most of the opportunities, and justice is a facet of wisdom. And one of the things that as we ourselves become more fair and just, as we become just an enhanced awareness of how unjust, unfair, and inconsistent the injustices that justice is on the earth. And if only men in power had wisdom such as Solomon, there would not be as much evil on the earth as we now have. Because for every matter there is a time and just judgment. So this is consistent with chapter 3. There is a reason for the season. Everything that transpires under the sun, and part of living well consists in living in harmony with the providential timing. For he does not know what shall be, so who declares to him when it shall be? The uncertainty of the future. Now, in the ninth chapter, the one we're going to review, the one we're going to actually read today, is it has the certainty of death and much of the uncertainties of life. So we literally do not know what will happen to us tomorrow. We have an idea of what can happen to us. We have a vision, and we're not accustomed to expecting the unexpected. But the fact is that the future is uncertain, but our death is certain. So how we live with that uncertainty is crucial to dying well and living well. No one has the power over the spirit to retain the spirit, and no one has the power in the day over death. Death is a sobering reality that the wise confront. He says this in the 7th chapter, that the wise gravitate to the house of mourning, and the wise are more inclined to sorrow than to laughter. To bring it back to the 3rd chapter, the paired stanzas, he actually elevates the superiority, because much of the word better proliferates and abounds in the early part of the 7th chapter. Then in the 10th verse, he describes something that shouldn't be, wicked getting a decent burial, which belongs to a saint, while the saint is despised and dejected and forgotten. And this is another species of vanity or futility. He says this in verse 11, "Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of son of men's is filled in them and to do evil." Laws are necessary and punishments are proper because of man's ineradicably evil nature. Remember, government was ordained by God, the 3rd dispensation, the dispensation of government, the post-diluvian period, when even the flood could not flood out the human heart's propensity for sin. But much as the wisdom consists in obeying the king for the order of operation, so too must the king who has the power to crush evil do so when it is in his power without hesitation, executed speedily, because when the sinner is unpunished, they get the idea that they can get away with it, and it ultimately invites greater evil both for them and on others. Although a sinner is doing evil 100 times and is prolonged, yet I know that there is good to those who fear God, whose fear before him. So you can get away with it for a whole lifetime. There is pleasure in sin for a season, but sin is a sedative. Eventually, by the 100th time, the novelty of the effect has been dulled to just as your tolerance increases for your particular indulgence. So the more you sin, you may preserve your life in the course of living in sin. You are not guaranteed to die young if you live in sin. But even it's better to die early and to fear God and obey his commandments. To fear the one, and the fear of him will eliminate and expel all other fears. So the wicked are dread the day of death, but the saints look forward to it, and we long for it. There is a futility which has been done on earth, that there are righteous ones who get according to the deeds of the wicked, and there are wicked ones who get according to the deeds of the righteous. I said, this too is futile. Solomon notes this as an observer rather than a victim of life's anomaly, as was, for example, Job. But even though he's on top of the socio-economic pecking order, he sees that the same reversal, that the wicked gets the burial of the saint in death, in burial, but also in life. The rewards of righteousness, there are no rewards. There are seldom rewarded. We are not righteous because we are rewarded, for this would reduce religiosity to a self-seeking exercise. We are righteous in spite of the lack of reward. So part of righteousness consists with not clamoring for recognition or reward. It's just content to, bear the anomalies in stoic silence, but, we cannot envy the wicked, because if we envy sinful people, first off, sin can not be defeated by the devices it employs, so they are winning if you succumb to envy, even though they are flourishing and prospering seemingly at our expense. It's just another species of the futility of all the things that transpires under the sun. So Solomon suggests as the remedy and the antidote enjoyment, and enjoyment apart from God is entertainment, enjoyment with God is enrichment. So he is the controlling element for the days of this life which God has given him. Life is a gift, is God's gift to us. It is wise and incumbent upon us to make the most of that gift. And he spares no effort or expense in his intellectual endeavor, he says in the 16th verse. Then he closes the chapter with this observation: Then I saw all the work of God, that man is unable to find out the work that has been done under the sun. For though a man labors to seek, yet he does not find it. Even though a wise one claims to know, he is unable to find it. The incomprehensible abyss of what can be known and what God does not allow us to know is just there's no adequate comparison in the qualitative chasm between an omniscient being, that's the attribute of infinite and unlimited intelligence, or as we are very finite, so our own independent intellectual inquiries are futile apart from God. So Solomon knew this better than anyone else. He was supernaturally endowed with an unprecedented, unduplicated, unrivaled, and unequaled endowment of wisdom. And if he claims to know, that means anyone who claims to know the answer which he is seeking, which haunts him, is what is the meaning of everything? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose? But if Solomon didn't know the answer, that means anyone who claims to is lying. First verse, 9th chapter. For all this I took to heart, even to search out all this, that the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hands of God. No man knows whether love or hatred awaits him. Solomon has the attitude and ethos of the scientist, the student, and the scholar. He's he's searching out like a scientist in pursuit of an experiment, and what he observes in the course of his experimentation is righteousness and wisdom. These are two virtues. These are two things that are to be praised and sought and cultivated, yet our fate and our reward or lack thereof are entirely in the hands of God, and part of living by faith in living righteously and with wisdom consists in knowing that we are not automatically entitled or guaranteed to be loved or favored or accepted or hated and rejected in this world. So the Hebrew words for love and hate entail an acceptance or rejectance. We don't know if we're going to be favored by God in this life, and that is part of what makes faith necessary, but faith also provides us with the assurance that we will be accepted, we will be embraced, and we will be welcomed into the heavenly homeland on the day when it matters most. It is the same for all, one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean, and to the unclean, and to the one sacrificing, and to the one not sacrificing. As is the good one, so is the sinner, that one swearing as the one fearing an oath. So there's a democracy of death. It comes to us all equal, and it makes us all equal when it comes to the righteous and the wicked. Righteousness cannot prevent the day of your death. It can enable wise living and obedient living, but wickedness, the wicked, they too must die, same as the righteous. And just that dichotomy between the righteous and the wicked is expounded on in a series of synonyms. So the good and the clean, those are the righteous, and the unclean are the wicked. The one sacrificing and the one who doesn't even bother to do sacrifices. Now there was an excess of indulgence in sacrifice by the apostate nation, which provoked the ire and wrath of Yahweh Almighty, as expressed in the first chapter in the book of Isaiah. But wicked people generally, wicked people were sacrificing as a substitute for living well. But Solomon is talking about one so wicked that they don't even bother to offer a sacrifice. The good one is the righteous, and the sinner is the wicked. The one's swearing as the one fearing an oath. If you swear on an oath, you have to fear it. An oath is binding. A vow is voluntary, but once you are in it, you invite curses and consequences if you fail to honor and obey it. He cautions against making rash vows in the 5th chapter. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun. There is one event to all. Truly the hearts of the Son of Men are filled with evil, and madness is in their hearts while they live. And then to the dead. So start to finish, it begins in evil, and then it ends in death. But under the sun is the earthbound view, so he is speaking about life, the event. Now he's not speaking of afterlife, he is speaking about death, the cessation of our mortality, when we cease to exist in our present form as we know it. And while we are here, man is, all these people who speak of the goodness of man, I really can't see it. Man is an evil creature. There is no goodness in man apart from God, and we are all, and even though individually we are not mad and evil, collectively we certainly are. Madness is the state of stupor, the state of mind that is just without rational reference or anything. In much of human history, our human report card suggests that we are a collectively mad species and collectively evil. Certainly, not every one of us no one of us is responsible for all the evil in our world, but that does not absolve us of doing nothing to neutralize the forces of evil in our path. But it all ends up in death, and this is the ultimate evil, the inescapability of the day of the death. This is what haunts Solomon, and the first century Jewish philosopher Philo said that there is nothing quite calculated to reduce man to slaves, such as the fear of death. Terrible paraphrase. Verse 4, but for him who is joined to all the living there is trust, for a living dog is better than a dead dog. While there is life, there is hope. All hope, all our hatred, all our loves vanishes with us when we die, but we're not quite there yet. For now he compares a dog to a lion. A lion is the mightiest beast, the top of the food chain, the predator that no one messes with. Mightiest beast, backs not away from any challenge, Proverbs 30:30. Dogs would have been decidedly more degraded and spoken of more disparagingly in the ancient world. They were a filthy scavenger, not man's best friend, not cute cuddly piece, but the term of derision reserved for Gentiles. So the Jews did have decidedly more degraded estimations of dogs than do we. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not, nor do they have any more reward, for their remembrance is forgotten. He speaks of the afterlife as if there is none, so the dead, all their intellectual activity, all their brain, all their cognitive function ceases when their bodies become worm food, according to the under the sun view. So from secular humanism, this life is all that we have. But while we're here, we must recognize, and part of wisdom consists in approaching the day of our death soberly, and how we want to live in between, what we want to do, a bucket list, things we want to do before we die. People fear death so much so that they avoid mention, they avoid talking about it, and as a result, they leave unattended what is too late to be attended to, because it creeps up so much, and they just have this overwhelming dread and fear of it. But we do look with faith. We know that that death is not the beginning, is not the end, but the beginning, but a beginning. It is an end, but it is also a beginning to a life without end. Also their love and their hatred and their envy have now perished, and they no longer have a share in all that is done under the sun. Once you die, that's it. Nothing you can experience. No love, no hate, no envy, no emotion, no experience, no chance or potentiality of experience. That dies with you when you die. And what happens under the sun is no longer your concern, because you cannot get any of it. You do not have a part of it. You do not belong to it. You were a guest and you overstayed your welcome, and you got kicked out of the house permanently forever. So the finality and the eternality of death does have a haunting effect, which engenders despair and discouragement. But there is an antidote. While there is life, there is hope. He made that earlier. I think the living, there is trust, more familiar translated as hope. Go eat your bread with joy and drink your wine with a glad heart, for God has already approved your work. So this is not the hedonistic philosophy, the Epicurean eat, drink, and be merry. It is to make the most of the time. We are to enjoy all things in moderation. Our life is to consist of a balance of pleasure, enjoyment, and working. If we work all the time and do not enjoy what we toil for, then that is a species of futility. But we are not to be so indolent as to not work for ourselves, and we are entitled to enjoy the fruits of our labor. This is a gift from God. God did not create life to be a joyless endurance race. He wants us to have, there is nothing unrighteous about good, clean, wholesome fun. But if we leave God out of the picture, that's when it degenerates into idolatry. But we already have the assurance of his acceptance and approval. This ought not be interpreted as the endorsement of the erroneous doctrine of universalism. There are definite criteria to meet to have access to that approval. Let your garments be white at all times. Let your head lack no oil. Spare no expense. White garments would have been expensive in the ancient world, and whites are emblematic and symbolic of righteousness. The saints are clad in white garments, symbolic of purity in the book of Revelation. But Solomon's telling them to, wear the best clothes, put on go to town, dress yourself up, whatever. I guess oil would have been valued on heads in the ancient world. See life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your futile life, which he has given you under the sun, all your days of futility, for that your share is in life, in your toil which you have labored under the sun. Since love is the greatest emotion we can experience and enjoy, and since that dies with us the day we die, the dead can love no more, they can live no more, they can fear no more, they can envy no more, they are no more. But while we are here, we have a refuge and an antidote for the meaninglessness of the world, and that is a wifely companion, a female counterpart who we share love with, and marriage is ordained by God. So it is commensurate with a righteous and wise life to have a wife that you love. and this will make the meaninglessness of the world neutralized in its potency, because you have this welcome distraction, and this is a gift. The life once more is given under the sun. God is the giver, but the days are futile. But this is our share, this is our portion, this is not our exclusive possession. Nevertheless, we can claim our own slice of the pie, for it is not uniquely ours. But, for toil and labor, we have to get something out of it other than just a restless existence to no profit and no enjoyment. All profit and no enjoyment. All that your hand finds to do, do it with your might, for there is no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you're going. If you're going to do something, go all out, get passionate, get into it, spare no expense, exhaust every effort, really, don't do things half-hearted is what he is suggesting. And Solomon was a man who was prone to excesses, and though he was a man of supernal excellence, he was ultimately undone by his own excesses. So in other occasions he does caution and advise moderation, but the fact that life is going to end almost accelerates the intensity of his urge to build all the palaces and all the fortifications and all the temples that he did. So he was a prolific builder, but he got it out of his system while he was on this earth, because in the grave where he was going, we go to a city which is not built by human hands, the ones that the patriarchs long to and look forward to. I again saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the mighty, nor even bread to the wise, nor even riches to men of understanding, nor even grace to men of knowledge, for time and chance meets with them all. There is an aristocracy of talent, but the best equipped and most advantageous are not always necessarily the victorious. Just think about how many people's potentialities have been clipped in their wings because they were enslaved or impoverished, and didn't have the opportunities that men with less ability, men and women with less ability, less ambition, less drive, less desire had. This is an inversion of the divine order, seemingly, because if God had his way, if heaven were reflective of earth, then everyone would be enabled to be in their right station. Of course, the fastest runner would win the race. That's not always the case. The battle to the mighty, how many times in human history, look at the Vietnam War, we were on paper militarily superior in every measure to the North Vietnamese, yet I don't want to get distracted in here, but the reason we didn't win that war is because we could not win that war. We refused to take the aggressive initiative, spooked by the ghost of Korea, because we feared that an infantry invasion of the northern Vietnam would draw China into the battle, and Nixon was negotiating with them. But even all the wisdom in the world cannot guarantee you that you will be flourishing and prospering all day. Even all the understanding cannot enable, the richest people in the world are not necessarily the smartest people in the world. No one gets rich by being stupid, at least as rich as some people do, but that is not an accurate barometer of the level of understanding that we possess. And knowledge, people of knowledge are demeaned and despised, and he goes on this in greater detail in the parable, which we're going to save for a different lesson, verses 13 through 17. We're going to connect that to 10:4, because these speaks the contrast between wisdom and folly, and then the ironies of life are in 10. But we have one more verse, verse 12 to cover, then we're going to wrap it up. For even man does not know his time, like fish taken in an evil net, and like birds caught in a snare, so the sons of men are snared in an evil time, when it comes down on them suddenly. We like to fancy ourselves the dominant food species, always the hunter, never the hunted, but the fact is that we are all at the mercy of time and chance, and we do not know the day of our death, and we don't know how we're going to get snared into evil, or even if we put on all our defenses and put on our best guard, we do not have the certainty of knowledge. We are likened to fish and birds that we hunt and we trap and we ensnare by time, chance, providence, and God. And it happens suddenly and quick, and then once it happens, there's literally no chance, no last chance left. So we only have one life, and how we live it is going to carry ripple waves throughout eternity. I hope you're here to invest in eternity. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Stay tuned until next time. I'll see you then. Goodbye.